And so we look at the post-death. What happened after you died? In Hinduism, they would cremate the body. Mourning, they would scatter the ashes over and into the river Ganga or Ganges, which is the holiest river in India. It would signify a merger with the eternal. You put that in and let the ashes flow by, suggesting that the person has merged with the ultimate. And then they would make memorials and shrines. Buddhism, for some days they worshipped the relics of Gautama Buddha with utmost devotion, divided those relics into 8 parts. One they kept for themselves, the 7 others were handed over to 7 kings. They erected in their capital cities stupas or memorial mounds for the relics. That's what happened after the death. In Islam, Abu Bakr died. Abu Bakr was the next leader. And only 2 years and was succeeded by Umar and then Uthman. Finally, in 656, Ali became the 4th caliph. This was the caliphate, the golden years. In other words, after Muhammad died, there were other leaders who took over and the movement was carried on. Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab. After the death of Moses, it came to pass that the Lord spoke to Joshua, the son of Nun. And so Moses went, Joshua came up, and then the movement still carried on. Christianity, he says, I am with you always. I am he who lives and was dead. Wow. Can you see the complete difference from any other founder? He says, yes, I was dead, but I am alive. Once again, I am asking that we keep the cap of inquiry on, not the cap of a believer, not the cap of a skeptic. The first inclination when I read that was, oh yeah, give me another one. Died and then rose again. Tell me who did that. Who can do that? And yet, it is written in the best attested ancient piece of literature in the world. There is no other literature that is more historical than this. It's not mythological, it's not legendary, so I'm stuck again. Can't believe and can't honestly throw it out. And so the only option in that point is to become an inquirer and make an honest inquiry. Because the meaning of what the people call his resurrection is a religious idea, it's a philosophical idea, but the resurrection itself is not religious. Whether or not it took place is not a religious question. It is a historical question. Whether the resurrection of Jesus took place or not is a historical question, and so the question has to be decided on the level of historical argument, and not the meaning of resurrection. The meaning is the Christian idea, but whether or not it took place is anybody's option to look and see. And so, why do we look at that? If we remain a believer or a skeptic, then we won't bother so much because we can throw it out. But if you are going to be an inquirer, then to face up to a claim in which a man has said he has died and has risen again, it's either the greatest miracle that he is trying to talk about, or it is the greatest delusion and hoax in history. Are you with me? There is nothing in between when a person makes this kind of a claim, that he rose up from the dead. Topics of this nature are huge. They have many, many ramifications. And when anybody makes a claim, naturally questions arise, many questions arise. And I'm glad that there is an interaction between you and me, because some of those questions are some pretty good, tough, hard questions, and that's nice. The harder the questions, the more your mind is able to work, and the more an inquirer you become. And I hope we will always stay inquiring in our minds. I'm unable to go through all of that for lack of time today, but I think we'll make a plan so that we will answer all those questions at some point. Some of them are really, really good. And some of those questions I think you and I will have to say, I don't know. And that's good too. That's okay. Because like we said, the number one characteristic of an inquirer is that he is humble and honest. So I'm glad we had some good questions. Okay, here we go. It is either the greatest miracle that is being claimed, or it is the greatest delusion and the worst hoax in history. Now when I looked at that, I said, oh, so how do I decide whether it's a miracle or a hoax? 2,000 years later. Would there be enough of material for me to make some kind of an inquiry? That's when I read Wilbur Smith's statement, and it says this: let it be simply said that we know more about the details of the hours immediately before the actual death of Jesus than we know about the death of any other one man in all the ancient world. He was a peasant, carpenter turned itinerant preacher. He was not a military general or an emperor or a king, and yet we know more about this man's death than of any other one man in all the ancient world. We know more about the burial of the Lord Jesus than we know of the burial of any single character in all of ancient history. Wow, I felt pretty good about that. Then I said, I can't possibly, look at that record and try to see if there's some factors and some details that either contradict and show it all to be a hoax, or something that might be sort of consistent. Aristotle's dictum: when you look at a piece of literature which was written when you were not alive, then it's best to give the benefit of the doubt to the document itself and not arrogate it to yourself, because you were not there. You don't start off by saying he's a liar. That was not an inquirer's mind. An inquirer's mind is to make an honest inquiry. We don't start by saying it's false. Similarly, you must listen to the claims of the document under analysis and not assume fraud or error unless the author disqualifies himself by contradictions or known factual inaccuracies. So that is the basis by which we will do it. We will start off by saying, okay, they told us. We are wondering whether it stands scrutiny or not. We don't start by saying, oh yeah, it's true because somebody else said it's true. Nor do we say it's completely false because they were his friends who wrote it. That is not acceptable to an inquirer. If the story is said to be unbelievable, which it is, to an inquirer, to an honest inquirer, when you start out looking at this claim that a man rose from the dead, you must acknowledge, at least I did to myself, this is an unbelievable story. Why? Because it strains my sense of reasoning. What could the correct story be? So we're going to correct the story if it is wrong. But if we make a correction, it should fit in with the rest of the story. It should not strain my sense of reasoning. Otherwise, all we've done is jump from the frying pan into the fire. So don't tell me another explanation that is equally ridiculous. This is ridiculous enough to tell me that a man rose up from the dead. And I'm struggling with that.